History is not just a story, it's a mystery. At Echoes of Genius, we investigate the lost technologies of the ancient world. Our investigation begins in the heart of a storm, with a people who dared to sail the unknown. And a question that has baffled historians for centuries. How did the Vikings conquer the ocean without a compass? The answer is not a myth, but a secret piece of science hidden in a magic crystal. This is the story of their greatest secret, Echoes of Genius. The Viking Sunstone. In the Viking Age, the North Atlantic was a realm of monsters, mist, and myth. A vast gray desert of water. To sail it was to sail into a blinding, featureless void. But the Vikings did more than just sail it. They conquered it. But how? On the open ocean with no landmarks, under a sky completely covered by thick cloud or fog. Their traditional sun compass was completely useless. By all logic, they should have been sailing blind. Yet somehow, these master mariners navigated with pinpoint accuracy, discovering Iceland, Greenland, and even reaching the shores of America 500 years before Columbus. How did they achieve the impossible? The clue may lie not in conventional history books, but in the Vikings' own epic oral legends. The great Viking sagas, filled with tales of heroes, gods, and magic, speak of a mysterious and powerful navigational tool. They called it a sunstone. The saga of St. Olaf tells of a time when the king, caught in a blinding snowstorm, used this very stone to find the sun's hidden position and save his ship from certain doom. For centuries, this was thought to be nothing more than a magical fantasy, until modern science discovered a real, naturally occurring crystal with almost magical properties. Iceland spar. This unique crystal has an extraordinary optical ability known as birefringence, or double refraction. Sunlight, even when completely scattered by clouds, remains polarized. Its light waves vibrate along a specific, invisible axis, and the Iceland spar crystal can detect that axis. It allows the human eye to see the invisible pattern of sunlight. By holding the crystal up to a completely overcast sky and rotating it, a navigator can find a single point of changing light that reveals the one true position of the hidden sun. It is a natural compass. But was this incredible science ever actually used by ancient sailors? For decades, there was no proof, until a discovery was made at the bottom of the sea, in the wreck of a 16th century English ship, which sank just after the Viking Age. Archaeologists found an unassuming piece of Iceland spar, stored alongside the ship's other official navigational tools. It proved that expert mariners of the era used both the new magnetic compass for direction and the ancient sunstone, likely to find the sun at noon, to calibrate their clocks. And so, a Viking legend, long dismissed as a fairy tale, was proven to be a forgotten piece of advanced natural technology. The myth was real. Armed with their sunstone and an unshakable spirit of adventure, the Vikings pushed the boundaries of the known world further than any European had ever dared. It began with an outlaw, Eric the Red, a killer exiled from both Norway and Iceland, sailed west into the unknown and discovered a vast new land. He gave it a clever name, Greenland, a brilliant piece of marketing to attract settlers. And for over 400 years, a thriving Norse colony survived on the very edge of the world. From this remote outpost, his own son, Leif Erikson, would take the next, even bolder step, sailing west into a completely uncharted ocean. After a perilous voyage, guided by the Sunstone and stories, he and his crew sighted a new world. It was a land of unimaginable bounty, lush, green, and filled with a resource the Vikings in treeless Greenland craved above all others. Timber, they even found wild grapes growing, and so Leif Erikson named the new continent Vinland, the land of wine. They established a small settlement, a foothold in a vast new world, the first European base in the Americas. It was here that they made a historic and fateful first contact, meeting the indigenous peoples of the land, whom the sagas called Skrylings. At first, a cautious and curious trade began between the two worlds. But misunderstandings and cultural clashes quickly led to violence. The Vikings, with their iron weapons, were powerful warriors. But they were also vastly outnumbered, thousands of miles from home, in a land that was not theirs. After only a few years of constant, brutal conflict, the Great Viking Experiment in America was over. They abandoned their settlement and sailed back to Greenland. Their dream of a new world was left to be reclaimed by the wilderness and eventually forgotten. And a few centuries later, their Greenland colony also began to die. A changing, colder climate and increasing isolation from Europe took their toll. In the early 15th century, the last ship returned from Greenland. Then, a profound silence. The entire Viking presence in the West had vanished. For centuries, the story of Vinland was dismissed by scholars as a mere fantasy, a fictional saga. Until the 1960s, when two Norwegian archaeologists decided to take the sagas literally. Following the detailed geographical clues in the ancient texts, Helge and Anne Stein-Ingstad began excavating a remote, grassy terrace in Newfoundland, Canada. And there, they found it. A small, bronze, ring-headed pin of distinctly Viking design. The definitive archaeological proof. The sagas, once thought to be myths, were proven to be astonishingly accurate historical records. The Viking discovery of America was not a legend, it was history. The Vikings had discovered a new world 1,000 years before their time. But discovering a continent is one thing. Holding on to it is another. For a time, their colonies flourished. The Norse settlement in Greenland, against all odds, survived and thrived for over 400 years, a testament to their incredible resilience. But then, the world itself turned against them. The climate, which had been unusually warm, began to change. The Little Ice Age descended upon the North Atlantic. The summers grew shorter, the winters more brutal. The European farming methods that had sustained them for centuries now began to fail in the freezing soil. They shared the land with the indigenous Inuit people, a culture that was perfectly adapted to surviving and thriving in the harsh Arctic environment. But the proud Norse, clinging fiercely to their European identity, largely refused to adopt the superior survival techniques of the natives. It was a fatal cultural pride. Back in Europe, the world was ending. The Black Death ravaged the continent. Trade routes collapsed, and the vital yearly lifeline from their Norwegian homeland was severed. The Greenlanders were now utterly and completely alone, stranded on the frozen edge of the world, waiting for ships that would never come. Slowly, quietly, and without any historical record, the colony began to die. By the 15th century, the last of the Norse Greenlanders had vanished, leaving behind only the silent ghosts of their farms and churches. Modern science, studying their skeletal remains, tells a grim and simple story. A story of increasing malnutrition, hardship, and a slow, painful decline into extinction. And what of the Sunstone? The brilliant piece of natural technology that made their impossible voyages possible. That incredible knowledge, too, was lost to time, only to be rediscovered by scientists centuries later, and eventually replaced by the satellites that now guide our own ships. The Vikings' Great Western expansion was, in the end, a brilliant failure. A voyage that reached its destination 1,000 years too early, but could not sustain itself. They were a flash of lightning in the West, a brief, glorious, and almost unbelievable chapter in the long story of human exploration. But their legacy is not in the lands they failed to hold. It is in their unshakable spirit of exploration, a defiant, courageous echo of genius that continues to call humanity towards the next unknown horizon.